Welcome back, survivor. If you can hear this, it means you're still alive. This is Jack's Nightmares, and this is your next story. I'll start at the point that makes sense. Not the first warning siren or the first body floating past the porthole, but the moment where things actually changed. That's the only way this story stays honest. My name's Mark Calder. I work weekends at Blueill Lodge, that underwater hotel out past the resort peninsula, the one they show on travel shows sometimes, the one where couples pay too much to sleep with fish outside the glass. My official title is dive technician, but it's just me down there keeping the air clean and the lights on, making sure tourists don't get weird about being 30 feet under the bay. It's a job that used to feel quiet, almost peaceful. I could check scrubbers with one hand and reheat coffee with the other, and never once feel like I was doing anything more serious than babysitting rich people's bucket list dreams. But all of that changed once the world above stopped answering. If you've ever visited the peninsula, you'd remember it, even if you think you don't. It's got that kind of glossy artificial charm that sells itself as authentic. The boardwalk wraps around like a polished necklace, white rope lights, overpriced tacos, live music echoing off the second-floor balconies. You've got wedding parties lining up on the docks at golden hour, Instagram couples clinking glasses in front of the marina, and tourists queuing up outside the aquarium to see a loggerhead turtle that somehow became the city's unofficial mascot. The ferry landing at the north end pushes folks back and forth to the mainland, mostly day trippers, or people who missed the last resort shuttle. There's one causeway road that feeds the whole thing, just 2 lanes, no shoulders, lined with palms and leaning light poles. On the quieter side, behind a thin wall of mangroves, there's a lagoon that feels almost forgotten. No party boats, no jet skis, just brackish calm. That's where we are, at the bottom of that shallow bowl. The lodge rests on sand and rebar, anchored in silt that hasn't been stirred in decades. The surface shed up top houses our compressors and backup systems, all tied to us through an umbilical line as thick as your wrist. Shore power usually hums without complaint, but when it doesn't, we've got a diesel generator that kicks in like a cranky old dog, stubborn, loud, but reliable if you treat it right. The whole setup is deliberately shallow, 30 feet give or take depending on tide. We're not doing deep-sea science or submersible tours. We're selling comfort with just enough danger to make it memorable. It's marketed like a fantasy. Sleep beneath the sea. Watch schools of fish swim past your bed. Private dive access. 24-hour support. Total escape. The brochures all say the same thing. What they don't mention is how everything here has to work perfectly, or else the whole fantasy becomes a trap. Still, people love it. The hotel's always booked 6 months out, sometimes longer. The influencers adore it for the aesthetics. Glass porthole selfies, floating breakfasts on silver trays, morning yoga with stingrays gliding outside the wall. Families bring kids who press sticky fingers to the windows and shriek when a fish gets too close. And the couples, well, they come to say things they can't say on land. There's something about the water, how it silences everything but the person next to you, that makes people think they've found intimacy, when really, they're just in a pressure-controlled tube with filtered air and flattering lighting. What the guests never see is how carefully engineered the illusion is. This isn't just some metal pod stuck in the mud. It's a low-pressure, ambient depth habitat built like a cross between a dive bell and a survival shelter. The interior is tight but not claustrophobic. 2 berths, a galley bench, a wet locker, and an environmental control panel that spits out readings like a nervous pilot. The air is constantly filtered through soda lime scrubbers to keep CO2 from creeping up, while 3 adults share the same volume. Lighting stays dim on purpose. Glare in a steel chamber makes people twitchy. Every curve, every hinge, every stupid hook on the wall is placed to keep guests from hurting themselves in a place where a concussion or panic attack becomes a very real emergency. There's a moon pool in the middle of the floor, the entry point from the water. At depth, it looks like a mirror on the ground, but you can push your hand through it and come up into air. Most guests find it magical. First-timers often gasp when they break through and see the inside of the lodge. But that mirror also means something else. If the systems above fail, and we lose airflow or pressure, that silver puddle turns from a novelty into a countdown. There's no door between you and the ocean, just pressure gradients and hope. My job used to be making sure no one ever thought about that. I'd run system checks, monitor airflow, change out scrubbers, double-check tank pressure for optional dives. I'd show guests how to equalize on the ladder and explain why we keep emergency oxygen clipped in the service locker. I liked it. Not just the technical part, though that was solid, it was the predictability of it all. I knew every fuse, every valve, every twitch the pressure gauge might give if the tide shifted fast. The guests came and went, the ocean moved, and I stayed down there, in the quiet. Then the surface stopped talking. The compressor line went silent. The generator noise cut out. And for the first time, I realized just how many people came here to escape the world, never thinking the world might actually end while they were underwater. Let me walk you through how it all started, the part where it still felt like an off day, before we realized there would be no normal shifts again. Because once things broke, they didn't just break all at once. They peeled apart slow, one layer at a time, and we felt every one of them disappear like threads being pulled out of a lifeline. Let me start there. Our team is small on a weekend. Hector Ruiz, senior dive supervisor, runs the pier shed and signs off every guest descent. He handles the generator checks and the compressor intake filters, and he laughs at my labeling habit until a fuse blows and my label saves him 10 minutes. I work the lodge end, the handoff briefings, the CO2 monitor unit tests, the here's how to swap a scrubber canister lesson that guests forget but still like hearing, because it gives them a sense of control. The company keeps the rest of the crew for weekdays and big groups. On my shift, it is me and Hector and a radio and a checklist that got grease on it ages ago. The guests who matter to this story arrive before noon on a Friday. Sasha Petrov carries a hard case with a camera and a dome port, bright woven bracelet on her wrist, hair tied in a way that looks accidental and probably took practice. She is 29, travel photographer on assignment for a mid-level magazine that still prints glossy pages, but lives off clicks. She is the type who asks good questions and does not brag. She has done resort intro dives, but nothing deep, nothing long, and she listens like someone who knows she is new at this part. Dr. Elaine Varga is 56, a cardiac anesthetist taking a short break after a rough run at her hospital. Calm voice, neat clothes, lower resting pulse than I will ever have. She swims, snorkels, and knows more about gases and respiration than anyone we ever host, which turns out to matter. She also carries an inhaler she has not used in months, and a paperback she pretends she will read and never does because the porthole pulls all eyes. You want to know what I am doing here when I used to do saturation work and earned more on a week offshore than I do in a month babysitting tourists? I tore a tendon in my right elbow 3 years ago, and I got tired of months away and bunk rooms that never felt quiet. I did not want to be the guy dragging a Pelican case through airports when he was 50. This job is modest, and I like knowing the shapes of the fish outside our window. I like being inside a system I understand end to end, where a generator is not a mystery box, and a blown belt is a problem I can fix with the tools in the service lock. I also like being the guy who hands a scared guest a mask and makes a strange place feel normal. That is who I am when this starts. The resort area above us is built to keep people moving and spending money even if weather flickers. There is a shingle roof bar with a corrugated awning, a gelato shop, a store that sells visors and SPF shirts with turtles on them, a tacky pirate ship playground with a slide that ends in sand. The aquarium posts feeding times on a board that no one reads because staff with buckets shout when it is time. On the pier, our support shed is a practical box, steel door, louvered sides, generator inside a sound hood with a day tank and a line to the larger tank behind a fence. 2 compressors, a bank of filters, valves labeled by someone with neat handwriting, probably Hector's wife if you ask me. Inside the lodge, we mirror the surface information on a simple panel that shows airflow, battery state, fan speed, CO2 parts per million, and 2 idiot lights I wired myself because the OEM unit had a delay, and I do not like delays when it comes to breathing. The descent on day 0 is clean. We meet at the pier. I show Sasha and Elaine how to equalize ears on the way down the ladder, and Hector watches my hand signals while I guide them into the wet porch mirror and up through it into the lodge. People always laugh in that moment because it feels like pushing through a trick. Wet porch drains. I close the hatch. I check the panel. We go through the safety brief. Here is the CO2 monitor. Here are the scrubber housings. Here is the emergency oxygen. Do not touch it unless I say. Here are masks in different sizes. Here is the intercom to the pier, which has a cable inside the umbilical, so even if radio gets chatty, we can talk through copper. I point to the escape plan printed and laminated on the wall. Swim to the mooring chain if you must leave. Hang on it at 10 feet. Slow your lungs down. Count to 60 too many times. Then move. It sounds theoretical, and I want it to feel that way for guests. Sasha presses her camera dome to the porthole and films a school of tiny jacks rippling like a flag. Elaine sits on the berth and watches light shift. Without fail, within 20 minutes of arrival, someone asks why the place smells faintly like a swimming pool that forgot to brag about itself. It is the soda lime in the scrubbers, I say. It is also the damp woven into the upholstery and the metal that has found its sea life. The world above is sun and concrete and heat. Our world is green and controlled and soft on the ears. I brew instant coffee because caffeine makes some guests feel secure. We talk about the aquarium tunnel and the turtle that loves the bubble curtain. Elaine makes a face about bubble curtains at aquariums. Sasha nods like she understands, and she probably does not, and that is fine. Late afternoon, before any of us are ready, the resort soundtrack shifts. Sirens on the causeway. One, then another, then the kind of long modulation that says a convoy. Helicopter not directly overhead, but close enough that the blades smear the surface when I look up from the wet porch. The intercom crackles with Hector's voice. He says it has been a weird day. He says the aquarium closed early because a family fight turned ugly, and security called police. And then someone bit someone else at the ferry landing, and then more biters showed up, and now the local radio is telling people to go home and stay inside. I want to roll my eyes at rumor physics, the way a small story gets a big shadow. I do not roll my eyes. I ask if our generator is happy. He says yes. I ask about fuel. He says he topped off the day tank and he is going to fill the big tank before dark, because the grid is twitchy, and he does not want to play chicken with chance. When shore power trips for the first time that evening, it looks like we planned it. My panel goes to battery for 2 seconds. The generator upstairs roars awake through the sound hood. My airflow stays steady because the compressors have priority and our circulation fans are second. The lodge hum sits a little lower and rougher on generator, a note you feel more than hear. Sasha grins like this is an adventure that she will post about later. Elaine asks how long we can run like this. Hector answers over intercom without my asking. He says all weekend easy if we have to, and longer if he steals diesel from the landscapers and the party boats. We all laugh because you always laugh when someone mentions stealing fuel from a party boat, like it is an island prank. After dark, I make the last rounds. The umbilical gleams in the moonlight like a wet line on a dock. The lagoon is calm inside the mangroves. From the porthole we can see a few lights on the pier and then the aquarium building, ghostly behind its glass. If you stand in the right spot in the lodge, you can see the silhouette of someone walking along the boardwalk. It makes the porthole feel like a TV. We notice groups moving faster than casual, and a push at the ferry gate where crowd meets gate and finds it locked. I talk about fish. I talk about the difference between the lumpy noise of an outboard at idle and a pump cavitating. The guests like the lesson because it gives the night a shape that is not just waiting. The first strange sound that matters is a thump that does not match wave rhythm. It presses on the outer hull and slides down. Elaine suggests a log. Sasha asks if it could be a ray. I say it could be either. It happens again with a lighter touch, as if hands were trying to climb the sides of something that offers no grip. None of us say what that sounds like in human terms. I check the wet porch ladder. I check the moon pool. Nothing is disturbed. My finger hovers over the fan control, and I do not touch it. When you are deep in a small place, you learn to stop making little changes to soothe yourself. It wastes air and puts noise in the only place where quiet is a gift. The CO2 number drifts up as night thickens. Not a spike, just a lazy rise that tells me we have 3 people breathing, not 2, and the scrubber we started with has done its hours. I swap a canister for a fresh one, set the used one to bake in my head as a maybe if I have to get more life by rotating back and forth, then shut that thought down because wet soda lime and corner cutting make caustic soup and a trip to the hospital we do not have. Elaine watches me with a doctor's attention. She asks nothing, but she notes the timer I set with a grease pencil. Sasha films the pencil mark and the number on the display and mutters something about good B-roll. I do not correct her. We are all building a record of something none of us understand yet. Just before midnight, the generator sound upstairs flattens and then quits. Our panel jumps to internal battery. Airflow to the lodge drops to 0. The compressors are not ours anymore. CO2 keeps counting up because people are still breathing. I press the intercom. Static and a clip of shouting that does not belong to Hector. Someone is yelling about keys, and a chain and a door. Sasha squints at the porthole like she can see sound. Elaine says we should wait 5 minutes before changing anything. She is right. Short bursts of panic make bad engineers. 5 minutes later, nothing has fixed itself. 5 minutes after that, I switch to the internal circulation plan, which buys us time but not independence. If air stops coming from the surface, we must make the air we have last. I tell them that in simple words so nobody fills in blanks with worse words. At 2 in the morning, the pier is not a pier anymore. It is a shoulder-to-shoulder shape that sways in the moonlight. Some stand in knee-deep water and hold the rail. Some reach for ladder rungs and miss by an inch, then by more. A man in a tourist shirt bumps the ladder with his chest a dozen times, and then drifts back, feet sculling without aim. The lagoon collects the ones who fall. Those who do not fall call to someone who cannot hear. Whatever happened inland poured to the edge of the water when people ran out of road. The word outbreak moves from rumor to something I do not name yet. The infected are not fast in water. They are not clever. They keep trying. No one on the pier helps anyone else anymore. That part ends early and ends hard. I tell Sasha and Elaine the plan that makes sense with the facts we have. We will not surface near the pier. We will pick the far side of the lagoon, where mangroves hang low and boats do not fit. I will mark a path along the mooring chain with 2 small lamps on a slow flash and a string of chem lights so we can find our way back if needed. We will go out with full tanks and a pony bottle strapped to Sasha's chest because she is confident but new. Elaine will have a snorkel and a bailout bottle with a simple demand valve since she is comfortable on the surface but not at depth, and because I want her workload low. We will move at night to use shadows. We will slip past the shallow drift and pop up under leaves like a turtle. If the near surface is choked with floaters, we will back away and pretend we never started. There is no brave here. There is only smart. We gear up in a way that should have felt routine. I check seals with slow hands. I tape a line reel to the rail and clip it to my harness. I show Sasha 3 signals and make her repeat them. Then show her the flashlight click counts I like if hands are busy. Elaine puts a neoprene jacket on over her bathing suit and makes a joke about modeling for a very specific catalogue. Sasha laughs too loud and then stops herself. I match her volume and make a worse joke so nobody feels singled out. We step into the moon pool and the skin of the water slides up my mask. Everything that ever felt clean and simple about this place turns taller. Out in the lagoon, night is a small room with bad curtains. The top 10 feet is milk from churned silt. My light cuts 3 feet and then dies. We move along the chain, hand over hand, and every link feels like it weighs a choice. I can taste the oil in my regulator and the salt that sneaks past everything that is supposed to stop it. We pause at the 10-foot mark and listen. I do not mean with ears. Underwater, you listen with the way your fingers feel water move and the way light shifts on the skin of your mask. Something rolls through our beam. Face first. Eyes open, film over them. A mouth chews at nothing. The body's hands open and close on water like it is a door that keeps slipping away. I hold the chain until my forearms burn, and then we back slowly. No drama, no flailing, because silt is a betrayal when you kick too hard. We re-enter the wet porch like children who learned a simple rule and obeyed it. The alarm that chirps later that night is not a bell or a siren. It is a polite tone that suggests a rising number. CO2 keeps climbing. I swap canister again and start the spreadsheet in my head I promised I would never keep in my head. If usage keeps this pace, we have a cushion of hours, not days. The intercom yields nothing but a dead carrier now. The generator upstairs is quiet. I know the sound of a machine that will start again after cooling off. I also know the sound of a machine that stopped because someone took something from it that it needed to run. Morning shows the truth I suspected. The umbilical line is slack in a way that screams problem. I pull it a few feet through the moon pool and see the cleanest shear I have ever seen on one of our hoses. Not torn, not crushed, not abraded. Cut. Clean blade. Probably a box cutter or a sharp knife, right where the line passes a pier footing. In a storm, a line snags and rubs. In panic, a person cuts. Who did it and why is a short list? Looters who wanted compressors and hoses. Someone who hated the noise. Someone who saw a line and thought it meant a boat, and then got an ugly surprise. Whatever the reason, we are now an island that breathes its own air with supplies that do not get refilled. I spend the afternoon building a wet splice with the parts we keep for bad luck. Spare hose length in the service lock, a barbed union, clamps, self-amalgamating tape that sticks to itself better than to your faith, silicone to quiet leaks. The plan is ugly and simple. Swim the hose to the pier base, find the cut end, push the union in blind by feel, tape until my wrists hate me, then slide the pier side into the intake bay, wedge it, and pray someone got the generator to cough again. Sasha insists on being my line telegraph. She will keep a guide taut and send me tugs if I drift. Elaine will sit on the ladder like a sentinel and count minutes out loud so brains do not turn to soup. We are a crew whether we like it or not. Under the pier, it is a different night. Even at noon, the light looks like evening. Beams of it knife through deck slats and show more dust than water. I work by touch, knuckles scraping concrete. The cut end finds me before I find it because it bumps my neck like a pet with bad timing. I push the union in and tape until my hands slip. The taste of glue comes through my reg. The pier is not empty. Bodies hang on the rungs like laundry in a windless place. One reaches down into the water with a slow insistence that makes no sense, and perfect sense at the same time. I press myself into the shadow between pilings and let it grope past. Then, I slide the other end of the hose into the dry intake box, wedge it with a chunk of wood, and kick backwards so smooth it feels like childhood in a pool. Back in the lodge, we wait for a sound that does not come. The intercom crackles to life for 2 seconds and spits what might be a human word, then goes flat. No airflow returns. My splice might as well be a picture. The generator is dead or stolen. The compressors do not care about my hope. We are back to scrubbers and circulation and a battery that has a number on it that does not lie. The easy day part of this trip is over. There is a kind of quiet that is not peace. It sits on your shoulders and rearranges your plans. Elaine proposes something and I feel relief because it is what I have been circling. Flood a little of the lodge to reclaim volume. Keep the scrubbers high and dry, and the fans aimed so each of us gets a small stream. Live in the berths and let the galley bench go ankle deep, then lower. Drop the temperature a notch with the circulation pump so air carries a little more oxygen per breath. Save motion for things that matter. Sasha jokes that she would have paid extra for an underwater hotel with water on the floor. We tape trash bags around the scrubber housings to make little raincoats and tuck every cable high. This is not a trick. It buys a chunk of hours, and we take them. Late afternoon day. 2. A skiff noses along the pier. 2 men in life vests and long sleeves climb into our shed with a crowbar for a key. They know machines. They loosen fuel lines like they have done it before. They tilt the generator, roll it onto a dolly, bounce it down the ramp, and secure it with the kind of knots you do not learn from YouTube in a single night. One of them sees the umbilical in the water, grabs it, and starts hauling hand over hand with a grin like he found a bonus hose. I stand under 30 feet of water and watch that slack disappear, and then pop out of his hand when the wedge in the intake bay gives up. He shrugs and laughs and taps his buddy on the shoulder like a man who just fished a hook out of a log. They push off with the machine that fed our lungs. I am not angry in a hot way. I am angry like a tire left to rot, low and permanent. You asked why the infected gathered so thick on the shore. The peninsula concentrated people the way a drain concentrates water. When the first alerts went out and rumors started, families drove to the aquarium, not away, because someone in each car thought the ferry might run to the mainland in safety. Security never built for this type of fear, closed gates meant for night shifts. Police tried to hold a line and then backed up to the causeway to hold the line there. People scattered down to docks and small boats. Someone brought a cousin who felt feverish and who did not want to be alone. Someone else pulled a stranger out of a scuffle, and the stranger bit a hand. Once the infected numbers crossed a point, none of the old rules applied. Some fell, or were pushed, or walked into the water because water looked like space and space looked like luck. The lagoon kept what it caught. Day 3 starts with 2 surprises. First, a tight, tired voice on VHF. Coast Guard cutter standing off the bay, doing a last sweep. The voice says, "Contact incidents on decks have put crews in the hospital and in bags." The voice says, "If you can maintain below, do it." The voice says, "Help will have to wait for a plan that does not exist yet." Then the voice disappears to handle something worse. Second, weather that had looked like a friend turns into a shallow squall line that drops rain in sheets and throws forks of lightning across the bay. The thunder tells the infected nothing useful. The rain does a small mercy and keeps most people indoors. Bodies bump our hull in a rhythm I do not enjoy. The lagoon looks fuller with every hour. The next plan is not brave. It is a maintenance drawing from an old binder. We keep a map of the lagoon floor and a stupid little sketch of an intake line that once fed seawater to the aquarium's chiller vault. The line runs from a grate near our lodge under a limestone lip to a flooded room beneath a utility building. From that room, a storm hatch opens into a service alley behind the boardwalk shops. It is meant for techs with waders and gloves, not people with bags and fear. The grate may be crusted over. The room above might be chained or jammed. The path looks doable if we flood our lodge to equalize, slip out with masks, follow a guideline, and move like people who trust touch more than sight. That is the plan we prepare because the other plans are worse. Preparation is tedious in a solid way. We tie together every reel of line into a single main run. I measure with arms and guess the rest with numbers I do not love but accept. Sasha breaks chem lights and tucks them into bands every 10 yards, because color matters when panic grays everything out. Elaine tags our last good canister changes on the panel and draws a little chart that says how much talking costs. She pulls the emergency oxygen candles from a box in the service locker, reads the warning label, and makes a face that says, "Those are a last resort." She shows me how to point a small fan so the oxygen mixes and does not build a pocket where a spark turns a can into a memory. We pack bolt cutters in a dry bag and tape the bag shut like parents getting on a plane with snacks they promise not to use. We do not wait long enough to be stupid. Day 4 into 5 is a long night in our heads, and then the moon slides low, the rain pauses, and the lagoon looks like it has paused too. We flood the lodge shoulder high. Electronics get taped or sacrificed. I strap the CO2 monitor to a strap above the wash line because numbers keep us honest. I clip the main line to the lodge rail. Sasha takes the lead reel. Elaine goes between us. I keep the bolt cutters and a second light. We close the hatch behind us and the world shrinks to a rectangle of water that goes forward, and then forward more. The old intake throat lives under a lip of limestone and barnacles. Close up, it looks like a mouth open to tell a story it forgot. The grating is half gone, broken in a storm years ago that no one logged. Good for us, bad for the plan that built it. Inside the box, silt billows at a touch. We swap to frog kicks and fingertip slides. The chem lights paint weak halos in cocoa. The line is our only truth. Sasha keeps it low and tight. She bumps a flange, checks her camera out of habit, and shoves the camera back into its bag. It is good that she cares about something else for a second. Elaine counts breaths quietly, not because the number matters, but because a simple task in a small voice keeps a brain from inventing monsters. The only monsters down here are the ones we brought with us. The culvert is a rectangle you cannot see until you bump it. I feel edges with my free hand and aim Elaine's shoulder gently when she drifts off axis. The sound of the city is far off and wrong, like a radio in another apartment someone forgot to turn down. We are not in city space anymore. We are inside a choices tunnel. It kinks twice and then opens into a maintenance vault that smells like old metal and nothing sweet. Air lives under the ceiling. It is calm like a saucer of water on a countertop. We surface into that inch of calm. I feel the way the reg hangs from my teeth and I do not remove it yet. I tap the wall, close, comfortable. I put my light on a ladder that goes up to a hatch. The hatch is chained from above. Of course it is. That is how you keep a storm hatch from popping in a blow and flooding a hallway. I hold up the bolt cutters. Sasha nods. Elaine sets her hand on the ladder to steady me, and then moves it because the ladder stings in the cold water, and her hand is done being a hero. I place the cutters and squeeze. The first cut is smooth. The second needs a reset and a grunt I keep in my chest. The chain goes slack with a muffled clank that sounds like memory more than trouble. I lift the hatch an inch. Light spills in from somewhere that forgot what time it is. Footsteps pass above. Slow, then slow again, then gone. We do not breathe in a way I can describe. We wait. Then I push the hatch wider and slide into a service corridor that looks like the backside of a mall at closing. The corridor runs behind the boardwalk shops. Soda crates stacked head high. A mop bucket tipped over and dry, which is funny in a room that tried to drown us. Posters for aquarium special shows curl on the walls. The air smells like old fries and wet cardboard. From the front of the shops there is a sound that could be wind or speech or the ocean deciding to come inside. No alarms ring. No fire sprinklers hiss. Power is out so deep the machines have given up complaining. I ease Sasha and Elaine out of the hatch and close it to a slit because you do not leave a door wide when you have not met the neighbors yet. We have a problem and a pointer. Problem first. We carried a little and left a lot. We have line, cutters, masks, and a bit of gas. We do not have food or extra water yet, and we do not know what waits around the next corner. Pointer next. The culvert and vault now connect water to air quietly. If there are people underwater who can still move and think, that line is a way out that does not put a head into the open bay like a target. I tie the guideline to a floor drain and chalk an arrow on the wall with a wax pencil from the dry bag. I write in block letters, air this way, follow line, 30 feet. I draw it twice in case someone shakes and reads only half. We move down the corridor with the kind of steps you take when a building forgot what day it is. The back door of the gelato shop is locked. The back door to the bar is propped with a wedge because someone ran out in a hurry and thought ahead. The bar smells like sugar and rum sweat. Tables are tipped. A chair sits broken near the front, and a smear shows where someone lost a fight with gravity. At the window, the boardwalk sits under a slow tide of bodies that are not all dead and not all alive. The infected do not flow like a wave here. They collect and lean and lurch. One sticks a hand inside a newspaper stand and pulls at a wet stack with a mind like a gear that lost a tooth. A child's helium balloon steps along the ceiling and stops at a sprinkler head and waits there like a citizen of a different map. We do not run past the windows. We slide behind the bar, take bottled water, open a metal box, and find a few protein bars and a handful of drink syrups we will avoid unless the world turns meaner than today. I pick up a heavy glass ashtray because weight matters when you mean it. I leave a whiskey bottle because dumb choices do not make heroes. Sasha checks her camera without thinking and then shoves it in a bag and gives me a look like she knows now is not the time. Elaine grabs napkins and wraps them in plastic because clean cloth is gold later. She also takes a bar rag for the obvious reasons. Small things make later things possible. We take the back stairs to the street that runs behind the shops, the one tourists never see. The sun is low and hazy. The causeway toward the mainland stands still with cars that died in a line or were left when Keys broke trust. A police SUV nests sideways across 2 lanes near the start of the bridge. Doors open, nobody in sight. Far off, a plume of smoke curls up from a neighborhood that had wood decks and grills and now has neither. We hear a motor, then 2, the skiff men, or someone like them. We crouch behind a dumpster that lost its lid. 2 men with the generator scoot down the alley, talking low. A third person staggers after them, arms out. Not one of theirs. They keep walking. The third person bumps a wall, slides down, stands, and finds the alley again. The generator men do not look back. I do not judge. Not today. A teenager in a staff polo dashes out of the aquarium side door with a first aid kit and a backpack. He sees us and flinches like a rabbit. I put my hands up, palms out, no threats. I tell him we came up through the utility vault. He says something about the turtle and a keeper and a flooded pump room. He is shaking words loose. He is alone. He asks if we have water. We hand him a bottle. He drinks, hands it back, then pushes it toward me again, like a boy who remembers sharing rules. I ask if he has a radio. He holds up one that beeps and shows no channels. He asks if the culvert is real and if others can come through it. I tell him yes, and I point him to the back corridor and the chalk, and I tell him to move only when the alley is quiet and to bring no more than 2 at a time, or else panic will fill the space where brains should be. He nods too fast and runs. I want to call him back and make him sit, just for a minute. I do not. We have choices, and none of them come with a guarantee. We can go inland toward the hospital where Elaine knows hallways but not the state of the doors. We can work the boardwalk side in short dashes and try for the ferry building where radios used to live. We can go back down and escort people through the culvert now that we know the path, which means trading the air left in our bottles for someone else's life. I look at Sasha. She looks at me, and then at Elaine. We do not vote. We say one name, the vault. Because if we can pull even 2 people through before this afternoon clicks into something worse, that will echo in our heads longer than a cleaner escape. We return through the service corridor the way we came, eyes on corners, hands quiet. At the hatch I listen, the kind of listening that is about air, no steps. I lower myself in and go back down the ladder. The vault breathes like a jar with a loose lid. We wait 3 minutes in case our teenager comes with someone. The someone is a woman with a toddler on her hip and a man with a cut on his forehead who says please before he says anything else. The toddler looks at me like a person who knows nothing of the names we give fear. We do not do words. We do masks. I show the woman a hand signal and a thumbs up. We go under and move slow through the culvert. She hugs the toddler to her chest and lets the child's legs float. The man holds the line like he is holding a promise. We come up in the lodge's shadow, and the moon pool mirror becomes an answer it was supposed to be all along. Inside the lodge, the waterline still sits at shoulder height. It looks like a house flooded by a river, except our river is the sea, and it was invited. The air is thin, but good enough. I set the woman on the berth and hand the child a chem light, which becomes a toy and not a tool. The man touches the panel and the soda lime canister like one touches a gravestone, with thanks and care. Elaine checks the cut with a wet wipe and a strip of gauze, and asks his name. He says Colin. He says he was a server at the bar. He says his brother stayed upstairs to look for their mother and did not come back. The woman says nothing, which is the right thing because words would only be weight now. Sasha films none of this. She looks at me, and I know we are on the same page. We fill bottles and go back up for another pass. 2 at a time is the limit you respect unless you want to see panic turn a small space into a bad story. The teenager returns with a woman in an aquarium polo, who walks like someone who ran out of running and kept going. She names herself Hannah and asks about the turtle with the kind of voice that means the question is also a shield. I tell her the chiller vault still has air, and that if someone wants to lead the turtle into the shallow training pen, it might stay safe for a few hours. She nods and files the idea with other things that matter and may not be possible. We bring her down. We bring the teenager down. We bring no one after that because the alley changes. Noise blooms in the boardwalk. A group of adults with poles and paddles, and a broom handle with nails pound at a metal gate. Not infected. Not organized either. A man with a red hat shouts about the ferry and the keys, and a person named Dale who promised something. A woman argues with him about kids first. No kids stand near them. The infected drift towards sound like iron to a magnet. The man with the red hat swings the broom handle at anything that moves and tags a person who was not infected 2 minutes ago. A boy with a skateboard tries to lift a kiosk shutter and gets his fingers pinched by another pair of hands that do not belong to a friend. The scene goes wrong in the kind of way I can describe without describing. We pull back into the service corridor and shut the hatch gently and make the choice to watch from the crack instead of stepping into a storm that would erase what we built. That choice will live with me. I still think it was the right one. We lock our little floodlit world into a loop, up and down, 2 by 2, careful, simple. Hannah takes a turn leading because she knows the aquarium's bones, and her presence calms people faster than I do. Sasha finds her best use in the vault, making masks fit and showing strangers how to trust a line with a hand signal, and a look that says, "Believe me or do not. But if you do it now." Elaine does quiet triage on a bench with the CO2 monitor strapped above her and a roll of gauze smudged and shorter with each trip. I time the canisters and rotate fans and hold 2 numbers in my head that scare me in different ways. We pull a man in a security uniform who whispers that he locked the aquarium front doors and then saw a friend inside he could not help. We pull a woman in a wedding dress soaked to the waist, mascara in grey rivers, heels in her hand because she figured out what mattered. We do not pull a boy who disappears between the culvert and the vault because he let go of the line to reach for a toy he dropped. That sentence is a rock in my pocket that will never leave. I am not asking you to forgive me. I am telling you what happened. We search for him twice and feel nothing but edges and our own breath. Hannah cries without sound and then goes back up for the next pair because action is what a person does when a heart does not know where to put itself. By evening, the boardwalk scene settles into a dull moan. The infected fill the gaps like weeds between paving stones. The generator thieves are gone. The Coast Guard voice does not come back. The causeway rests like a dead animal. The aquarium turtle probably figures out how to find the shallow pen on instinct because animals often do what humans make charts for. We have more people in the lodge than the brochure ever imagined. Air moves, but not like it should. The waterline sits under the rail in a way that tells me we need to pick a direction that is not just rescue. The lodge cannot be a dormitory longer than a few hours more. I take a breath that tastes like the day we moved into our first apartment, and the water heater broke, and we ate cereal out of a mixing bowl, and I promised myself I would be a person who planned things. I tell everyone exactly what I will say to you now. We will move inland in small groups down the service corridor behind the shops, not past the glass. We will use the alley instead of the boardwalk whenever possible. We will avoid the causeway until we have better eyes on it. If we can reach the small city park behind the aquarium, we will regroup there under trees and take stock. We will take what we can push in a cart and nothing else. The lodge and the vault will remain our exit and our air for an hour more. After that, the numbers stop caring what we wish. We form groups because bodies move better when they have a shape. Hannah leads one with 2 kids and a grandmother and the teenager in the staff polo. Elaine leads one with Colin and the wedding dress woman, who holds a child's hand that is not her own. Sasha moves with me at the back with a cart that squeaks once every 5 feet because a bearing decided today was its last day, and I do not fix it because the sound is a kind of heartbeat for our line. We slip along the corridor, wait for the motor of a skiff to fade, and cross the alley to the park fence when the wind rattles a sign hard enough to cover shoes on asphalt. The park gate is open. The grass inside sucks at our ankles because storm water trapped it, but it holds our weight. We step under live oaks and for a second the world feels like the world we had, because leaves do not care about disease or panic. Leaves hold rain and drop it when a breeze says go. We set people under a pavilion and pass water and crackers and the 2 bags of chips that survived the bar. Children begin to do child things, wonder at geckos, and poke at a trash can lid with a stick. A man I did not pick for anything starts to tell everyone about his law firm and his plan for liability. I tell him to count the bottles and stop when he gets to 30 and start again. He nods and does it because jobs matter. The sun drops behind the aquarium roof. The lagoon takes that last light and turns it flat. The infected on the boardwalk find less to do and simply stand, which is stranger than shouts. Stillness after noise is the part that makes you feel like you left the room by mistake. We stay a while. We listen. We decide not to sleep. Someone suggests the hotel at the far end of the peninsula. I say out loud we will not lock ourselves into another glass box with a lobby. We pick the maintenance building behind the aquarium instead. A low, concrete rectangle with metal doors that are honest with you. We pry one open and find shelving and buckets and a rolling cart that will carry 3 cases of water if you trust it. We make a little village out of a storeroom, a pavilion, and the quiet under the trees. It is not safe. It is safer than moving without a target. In the middle of the night, when the air under the pavilion cools enough that you think you could close your eyes and pretend, 3 men step into the park through the gap where the fence bent. Not infected, not here to help. The first holds a machete that has cut more vines than meat in its life. The second has a bat. The third has an attitude that fills the space left by food. They see our people and weigh simple math. I stand before math gets finished. I hold the heavy glass ashtray in my hand and show them a loop of paracord with a small hook tied to it. I say I worked offshore, and I am happy to teach them the easy way to take hands off an idea. I do not raise my voice. I look at the second man first because he will decide how this goes. He pauses. He looks at the children. He puts the bat on the ground and raises both hands and backs away. The machete drops an inch, then a foot. The men leave. They will be back to this park on some other night to look for the soft version of us. We will not be here. I go back to the maintenance room and take a paint marker from a bin. I walk to the utility corridor and the hatch and write again above the arrow, bigger this time, strong enough to resist a week of damp. AR this way, line tied, move quiet. I want to stay and run a shuttle for another hour. I look at the panel in my head with numbers that do not listen to my wants. I choose the park and the living who need another hour without a plan, more than those below who might not make it even with one. These decisions stump speakers and fill books. In the end, they are a weight that a person carries or drops. I carry this one. We leave the peninsula before dawn the next day, with a line like a small caravan. The causeway has fewer moving shapes than last night. The police SUV still holds its place. We walk the shoulder. We do not step into cars because cars hold stories that can stick to you. We pass a billboard that still offers brunch. We pass a woman sitting on a curb with her head tilted and her hands in her lap, like a person waiting for a bus that forgot the time. She watches us and does not stand and does not lunge. Walking Dead move when sound asks them. We make no request. We step. We do not eat that story too. On the mainland side, the strip of shops looks like a mouth with teeth knocked out. A hardware store with one pane missing and chains still on the doors gives us what we need because I know how those doors work. Inside we take tarps, rope, a camping stove that runs on small green cylinders, and the green cylinders. We take a bucket with a lid and a bag of trash bags, because sanitation at a camp is the difference between a group and an emergency. We take a roll of duct tape because it is the right answer to questions we have not heard yet. We leave money on the counter because someone will feel better if that matters tomorrow. It might not, but we are not giving up on small rules yet. We reach a church with a wide covered porch and a set of classrooms on the side. The preacher is not there. A handwritten note says the congregation moved to a high school gym inland. We rest in the shade and eat crackers and drink water rationed like we are counting backwards from a number we do not share. A man in our group says he knows a storm drain that shortcuts the subdivision and will keep us off the boulevard. He is right. The drain smells like what storm drains smell like in August, and it does not care if we approve. Children hold hands. Adults hold their tongues. We climb out near a park with a band shell and a bronze statue that has a pigeon on its head because pigeons do not care either. At the edge of the park stands a woman with a baseball bat and a backpack. She wears a shirt with the resort logo on it. She saw us from a block away and waited the way someone waits at a crosswalk for a light even when there are no cars left. When we get close, she points to Hannah and says she is from the turtle team and asks if the turtle made it to the shallow pen. Hannah nods and then shakes her head and then shrugs because a shrug is the most honest thing. The woman presses her lips together and then lifts her chin. She says there is a community center 3 blocks up that opened its doors and then closed them again when the crowd got ugly, and that the people inside are letting small groups in at dawn and dusk if you knock soft and use a name. She says her name and we test it later, and it gets us through a door we would not have found on our own. We spend the day setting a system. Children in one room with 2 adults and a stack of picture books that will please and bore them in an hour. Elders in the room with the least stairs. The rest of us in the main hall under a basketball hoop with a backboard that has more scuffs than my truck. We show the staff how to rig a tarp windbreak on the back patio to create a shaded kitchen so heat and smell do not own the room. We pull a small generator someone had guarded in a closet out onto the slab and wire it to a box fan and a string of lights. We validate the way the center is rationing water and help them put the loudest person in charge of the sign-in sheet so the loud has a job. Small arrangements, quieter place. A quiet place decides things better. I sleep for 1 hour on the wood floor and wake to the idea that I can go back to the utility corridor and tap the guideline twice and then twice and see if anyone taps back. I tell Sasha, and she sits up and says we can do it at dusk with 2 bottles and a simple plan. Elaine says she will check the CO2 canisters in the lodge if we get to the vault because she wants to see if anything we left can be stretched without poison. Hannah says she will not go because she has faces under this roof she will keep alive by being here, not down there, and that is solid wisdom. We shake hands like this is morning in a world before this world. Then we step out again because a person who knows a way through water owes someone under it a try. We reach the peninsula before full dark. The boardwalk is quieter. The infected stand like mannequins that forgot to pose. The alley behind the shops holds less motion than yesterday. The utility corridor smells like a cooler that held fish and then did not hold anything for 2 days. The hatch gives with the easy clink of a chain that is now a memory on the floor. The vault under the utility building holds air in the top inches, stale but enough for a minute. I tap the guideline twice, then twice, and wait. Water speaks in echo languages, and you learn one quickly. No reply. I tap again. A faint knock comes back and I let out a breath that feels like someone took a cinder block off a chest. The knock is not from the culvert. It is from the far wall where the intake box leads to the aquarium chiller line. Someone learned the same diagram I found. We catch the glint of wet eyes behind the grate first. Just movement where there shouldn't be any. The face is half submerged, turned slightly to shield from the glare of our lights. A woman's voice answers when I call out, calm but frayed, like someone forcing the panic back 1 word at a time. She tells us the intake grate jammed halfway through. She and another tried to muscle it open from their side, but the other gave up maybe an hour ago, slipped away or lost his nerve, she doesn't say. Her arms are still threaded through the bars when I press up close. She's shivering, more from the effort of staying composed than the cold. We make it fast. I reach for the bolt cutters and clip the 2 zip ties holding the top slat in place. Left there by some lazy installer years ago who never thought anyone might need to use this line in reverse. Sasha wedges the pry bar under the edge and works it loose, and it takes both of us bracing our feet to peel the slats wide enough. The woman slides through, gasping the moment her head clears the waterline, and then the boy follows. Skinny, soaked, knuckles scraped raw. His skateboard's gone, but it's him. The same kid who tried the kiosk shutter and lost a fight with the pavement. He looks up at Sasha like it's a school hallway, and they're back in line for lunch. She grabs his hand without saying a word, just squeezes it tight, and I swear the world pauses, just for that moment. We don't linger. The vault still has air, but the CO2's creeping. I've seen that slope too many times not to trust it. We secure the grate behind us, but leave the opening passable. Maybe someone else will make it this far. And if they do, I want them to see hope instead of a dead end. The swim back feels shorter than it should, like we've memorized the turns with muscle memory. It's not easier, just more familiar. Back at the lodge, the waterline is higher now, lapping against the emergency panel just beneath the CO2 monitor. 1 scrubber canister left in the dry zone. I'd marked it earlier, maybe an hour, if no one talks, if no one moves too much. I don't even glance at the oxygen candles. I already know what they'll give and what they'll cost. Not worth it. I pull one of the spare pony cylinders from the wall and clip it to the railing at 10 feet, just outside the moon pool. Enough for 1 ascent, slow and steady. Next to it, I leave a laminated tag with a note. Safe air, 20 minutes. Move slow. If you're here, we were too. I don't write a name. I don't leave coordinates. Just a quiet fact. Someone was here and thought about the next person. I leave the hatch cracked just enough to be seen. If you know what to look for, it'll feel like an invitation. If you don't, it'll feel like an oversight. That's the best I can offer. The corridor on the way out smells like old salt and moldy towels. Halfway back, we pass the generator crew again, this time pushing their dolly with nothing on it but regret and attitude. They're arguing, fuel this, hose that, until the second guy spots me holding the same heavy glass ashtray I've carried since day 2. He gives it a nod, more acknowledgement than threat, and says, "That'll do in a pinch." I nod back and say a name that isn't his, but might have been someone he left behind. He pauses. Shoulders drop. No fight, no jokes. They move on, dragging their empty dolly and whatever pride they didn't spend back at the pier. Some fights only matter if you decide they do. This one didn't. We make it back to the community center by sundown. People are outside the gym doors now, sitting in groups on the curb, chatting, sharing what little's been scavenged. Someone's built a fire in a cut-open metal trash can with a few bits of dry pallet wood. The smoke drifts slow, grey, almost gentle. It doesn't smell like the world ending anymore. It smells like people trying to make something last. The woman, Hannah, we learn, is guided inside by one of the staff who'd been waiting near the entrance with a clipboard and a lantern. She asks for quiet, and she gets it. The boy flashes a grin at Sasha before disappearing into the gym, where someone's rigged a screen with an old DVD player and a stack of cartoons. It's all scratched discs and short cables, but the kids don't care. They're sprawled out on floor mats with socks pulled up to their knees, like it's the end of summer camp, not the end of the world. I'm not sure when we started calling this place home, even temporarily. Maybe it was the way the old man near the snack table started rationing out crackers like he was assigning gold. Maybe it was when Elaine found a dry erase marker and started logging everyone's medical needs on the wall in neat columns. Or maybe it was that moment just before sleep, when Sasha curled up against the wall next to the gear bag and whispered, "We did good." I think she's right. We didn't save everyone, and we didn't stop the infected from taking the shoreline. But we pulled people out, got them somewhere dry, made choices that didn't come from fear. That has to count for something. I spent so long underwater that the air up here still feels too light, like I should be holding my breath. But I'm not. I'm breathing, not running, not hiding, just here, with people who know what we went through and who want the next day to be just a little better than the one before. We'll keep watching the shore. We'll keep rationing the diesel. We'll use the last scrubber when we have to. And if someone makes it to the vault and follows that line, they'll find the note and the cylinder. They'll know someone gave them a shot. That's all any of us can do now. Not rebuild the world, not cure what's broken. Just hold a little space, long enough for someone else to step into it. That's all for now. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to keep the stories alive. For now, stay quiet, stay vigilant, and stay alive. Jack's Nightmares, signing off. Until next time, survivor.